So the first thing that we're going to do is configure our domain name. Before we go jump in and just start working with our domain name, let's talk about what it is for a moment. Well, our domain name is very straightforward. We have a top level, we've got a second level, and of course we've got lower level domains. Now for our top level, that's an easy one. It's .com. Now we're going to say we're going to use the OnMicrosoft for a moment. So we have our second level, which is going to be OnMicrosoft, and we've got our tenant, which is going to be GlobalMantic.ca. So you can see right here, GlobalMantic.ca is a child of OnMicrosoft, which is a child of OnCom. You got it. Very straightforward. Now because of this, it also allows me to turn around and add other children in there, or other tenants, so I can add JICAN and so on and so forth. But what about my own domain? Well, let's look at that for a moment. So the top level, what I'm going to be using is the .ca. And the second level is GlobalMantics. So we've got GlobalMantics.ca. And I'm allowed to bring that domain and bring it into Office 365, which will then give me having the globalmantic.ca.onmicrosoft.com and globalmantics.ca as the domains I've got inside of my tenant. So what domains can I actually bring over? Well, all of the main ones, .com, .org, .net, .gov, and of course all of the wonderful country ones we've got out there. All of those are automatically accepted domains that we can bring over to Office 365 and import into our tenant. However, there are some that I'm going to call, well, let's call them check first domain names. That means you should check first before you go buy one and assume you can bring it into Office 365. And there are so many unique ones out there now. So we've got everything from .design, .expert, .reviews, .tips. We've got website, money, store, give, fit. We have got a ton of them. Now, all of these here are our top level domains that are out there right now. And I know there are hundreds more. But if it's outside of our normal, we'll call them our roots, and of course outside of our country sets, and it starts going into these more unique ones, just make sure you can bring it over first. So let's talk about using a domain name. What does that actually mean to us? Well, let's take user accounts. They can now be created with our domain. We don't have to turn around and do an onmicrosoft.com domain anymore. So it's not going to be, like JICAN as you saw at globalmanticsca.onmicrosoft.com. If I brought globalmantics.ca in, it would just be JICAN at globalmantics.ca. I could create an account on either one of those. That then leads us into, of course, email addresses. You just saw if we're creating the user accounts at it, we can create the email address at it. The other thing that I really like is Autodiscovery. We can use our own name. So if somebody goes and looks for my MX record, they'll be then pointed over, of course, to Office 365. But if you go look at the Autodiscovery, you'll again be redirected over to it. So that means an individual can just go in to Outlook or into Skype, and they can put in their actual address. It'll auto-discover, come back to them based on my domain. So those are some really nice key points to it. But what if I want to bring in multiple domains? So let's just take an example here. I've got globalmantics.ca. I also have globalmantics.com. Well, the good news here is multiple domains are supported in Office 365. You can actually have up to 900 of these. But we can only have one default domain. And that means that we've got 899 other domains. So a default domain is very straightforward. When I go to create an account, what's the default that's sitting there? If I bring in a bunch of users on a CSV, what domain are they going to be attached to automatically? Now, it doesn't mean that I always have to use the default domain. It's exactly what it states. It's just default. Okay, but let's go a little bit farther than this. So I can add in a ton of domains. But what about subdomains? So let's give an example of that. So I've got, my globalmantics.ca, but I want to bring in HR. So I've got hr.globalmantics.ca. I also want to bring in it.globalmantics.ca and www.globalmantics.ca. Well, the good news here is they are supported. As long as we can attach a TXT record to it to prove that we actually own the domains, we're fine. Now, each subdomain, though, still counts as a domain towards your total. So if you've got 900 of these and you start bringing in a bunch of subdomains, each subdomain still counts as one domain. Very straightforward. Now, one last thing I want to talk about before we get out of here. I want to talk about DNS records. Now we're not going to go into what we're putting into each DNS record, but I just want you to get ready to see what we're going to be working inside of. So for the DNS records, we're going to have to take care of our MX record, our CNAME records, our TXT records, and our service records, our SRVs. And these are basically what we're going to focus on as we go forward throughout the next videos. But for right now, we're actually just going to go ahead and we're going to jump into a demo. And inside of the demo, what we're going to be doing is we're going to set up Office 365 domain name. It's a bunch of steps we have to take, so let's go through them step by step, shall we? Let's go take a look at that demo. Alright, let's jump back to our admin center. Now you're going to notice we have domains right here. So we got add, delete, edit, check health. Let's just click on domains for a moment. Now up top we're going to have two things. We can buy a domain from Office 365 from Microsoft, or we can add a domain. Well, I have one, so I'm going to add, and let's put in our domain here. We're going to put in globalmantics.ca. Let's click next. Okay, so we've got two options here. It'll sign into GoDaddy automatically for me, and it'll turn around and set everything up. I'm actually going to go and do it manually. So let's add a TXT record instead. And that'll allow me just to go in and manually do everything we need to do. Let's click next. Now here's what we have to do. You'll notice we've got step-by-step instructions, but it gives us all the information here. So we're going to have to go set this TXT value, especially the MS equals, and of course our MS GUID. Okay, now that we've got that, we know exactly what we have to do. We're going to stop here for one moment.